Pranamitam Ena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. In the continuation of reading the book Srila Prabhupada's Lilamrita, chapter 3, we started yesterday. Sitting with his back very straight, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati appeared tall. He was slender, his arms were long, and his complexion was fair and golden. He wore round bifocals with simple frames. His nose was sharp, his forehead broad, and his expression was very scholarly, yet not at all timid. The vertical markings of Vaishnava Tilaka on his forehead were familiar to Abhay, as were the simple sannyas robes that draped over his right shoulder, leaving the other shoulder and half his chest bare. He wore tulsi neck beads, and the clay Vaishnava markings of Tilaka were visible at his throat, shoulder, and upper arms. A clean white Brahmanical thread was looped around his neck and draped across his chest. Abhay and Naren, having both raised in Vaishnava families, immediately offered prostrated obeisances at the sight of the revered sannyasi. While the two young men were still rising and preparing to sit before any preliminary formalities of conversation had begun, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta immediately said to them, "You are educated young men. Why don't you preach Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's message throughout the whole world?" Abhay could hardly believe what he had just heard. They had not even exchanged views, yet this sadhu was telling them what they should do. Sitting face to face with Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati, Abhay was gathering his wits and tried to gain a comprehensible impression. But this person had already told them to become preachers and go all over the world. Abhay was immediately impressed, but he wasn't going to drop his intelligent skepticism. After all, there were assumptions in what the sadhu had said. Abhay had already announced himself by his dress to be a follower of Gandhi, and he felt the impulse to raise an argument. Yet as he continued to listen to Srila Bhakti Siddhanta speak, he also began to feel won over by Sadhu's strength of conviction. He could sense that Srila Bhakti Siddhanta did not care for anything but Lord Chaitanya, and that this was what made him great. This was why followers had gathered around him, and why Abhay himself felt drawn, inspired, and humbled, and wanted to hear more. But he felt obliged to make an argument, to test the truth. Drawn irresistibly into discussion, Abhay spoke up in answer to the words Srila Bhakti Siddhanta had so tersely spoken in first seconds of their meeting. "Who will hear your Chaitanya's message?" Abhay queried. "We are a dependent country. First India must become independent. How can we spread Indian culture if we are under British rule?" Abhay had not asked haughtily, just to be provocative, yet his question was clearly a challenge. If he were to take this sadhu's remark to them as a serious one, and there was nothing in Srila Bhakta Siddhanta's demeanor to indicate that he had not been serious. Abhay felt compelled to question how he could propose such a thing while India was still dependent. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta replied in a quiet, deep voice that Krishna consciousness did not have to wait for a change in Indian politics, nor was it dependent on who ruled. Krishna consciousness was so important, so exclusively important, that it could not wait. Abhay was struck by his boldness. How could he say such a thing? The whole world of India beyond this little Ultadanga rooftop was in turmoil and seemed to support what Abhay had said. Many famous leaders of Bengal, many saints, even Gandhi himself, men who were educated and spiritually minded, all might very well have asked the same question, challenging the sadhu's relevancy. And yet he was dismissing everything and everyone as if they were of no consequence. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta continued, whether one power or another ruled was a temporary situation, but the eternal reality is Krishna consciousness, and the real self is the spirit soul. No man-made political system, therefore, could actually help humanity. This was the verdict of Vedic scriptures and the line of spiritual masters. Although everyone is an eternal servant of God, when one takes himself to to be the temporary body and regards the nation of his birth as worshipable, he comes under illusion. The leaders and followers of the world's political movements, including the movement for Swaraj, were simply cultivating this illusion. Real welfare work, whether individual, social, or political, should help prepare a person for his next life and help him re establish his eternal relationship with the Supreme. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati had articulated these ideas many times before in his writings. There has not been, there will not be, such benefactors of the highest merit as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his devotees have been. The offer of other benefits is only a deception. It is rather a greater harm, whereas the benefit done by him and his followers is the truest and greatest eternal benefit. This benefit is not for one particular country causing mischief to another, but it benefits the whole universe. The kindness that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had shown to Jivas absolves them eternally from all wants, from all inconvenience, and from all the distresses. That kindness did not produce any evil, and the Jivas who have it will not be the victims of the evils of the world. As Abhay listened attentively to the arguments of Sri Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, he recalled a Bengali poet who had written that even less advanced civilizations like China and Japan were independent, and yet India labored under political oppression. Abhay knew well the philosophy of nationalism, which stressed that Indian independence had to come first. An oppressed people was a reality. The British slaughter of innocent citizens was a reality, and independence would benefit people. Spiritual life was a luxury that could be affordable only after independence. In the present times, the cause of national liberation from the British was the only relevant spiritual movement. The people's cause was in itself God. Yet, because Abhay had been raised a Vaishnava, he appreciated what Srila Bhakti Siddhant was saying. Abhay had already concluded that this was certainly not just another questionable sadhu, and he perceived the truth in what Srila Bhakti Siddhant said. This sadhu wasn't concocting his own philosophy, and he wasn't simply proud or belligerent, even though he spoke in a way that kicked out practically every other philosophy. He was speaking the eternal teachings of the Vedic literature and the sages, and Abhay loved to hear it. So I stop here for today's reading, and seems to be a very interesting part of today's reading where we see that Abhay Srila Prabhupada happens to meet his spiritual guru face to face first time, as we have learned that since he had not had much faith in the sadhus due to the all kind of people taking the form of sadhus and taking the benefit, he was least interested. Although with the force of his great dearest friend Naren, then he happened to visit Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur. We can understand from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur how firm and how firm he was fixed in the philosophy of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's, which he explained to Abhay's question how it does not matter, and Krishna consciousness is totally independent and is not tied to any other factors, either India being ruled by anybody or even it would be independent. It doesn't matter. Krishna consciousness itself is a independent and should not be served at any cost. This makes us understand that even it is a lesson for us too. No matter what it is, we have to make the priority Krishna consciousness in our life. This made Abhay have a strong understanding how Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati was bold and affirmed in this statement